by flaws in a gene called RPE65. Those with it can't make a protein needed by the retina tissue at the back of the eye that converts light into signals to the brain that lets us see. People often see only bright light and blurry shapes and eventually lose all sight. Parents are carriers of the flawed gene, and it can lurk undetected for generations, suddenly emerging when an unlucky combination gives a child two copies of it. It's usually a surprise that they have a blind child, said Dr. Bennett, the University of Pennsylvania researcher, with her husband, Dr. Albert McGuire, led testing at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. Results: 18 of 20 treated study participants improved on the mobility maze a year later. 13 passed the test at the lowest light level. None in a comparison group of 9 patients did. That group was allowed to get the therapy after waiting 1 year. So in all, 29 were treated, plus more in earlier studies. The 2 who did not improve may not have had enough healthy retinal cells to respond to treatment. One improved on another test, and another stopped deteriorating. Mom, what is that? Ashley Carper recalled when her children were diagnosed with the disease. The doctor came out with tears in his eyes. He said it was the same condition, and they will be blind and nothing could be done. Cole and Carolyn used canes and went to school for the blind. Cole played football, but he played center and just stood on the field after the snap to the quarterback because he couldn't see well enough to do more, his mother said. 10 years ago, she went to a support group conference and happened to sit next to Bennett. It took 2 years for gene testing to determine whether the Carper kids would qualify for the study, and insurance wouldn't pay because there was no established treatment. A Dallas hospital picked up the tab. Finally, the siblings were enrolled in the study, but they landed in the comparison group, so they had to wait a year to be treated. About a week after Cole's treatment, they went shopping at Target. Seeing gold. For Christian Cardino, a senior at Chagu Medford High School in Long Island, the most remarkable part about performing on America Got Talent the day before his 17th birthday earlier this year wasn't winning the golden buzzer that showered gold confetti on him and sent him into further competition. It was seeing the confetti thanks to his gene therapy several years ago. And the next steps. The FDA must decide by January 12th whether to approve Luxturna. What it might cost is a worry. Spark's chief executive, Jeff Marazzo, would not give an estimate for cost. Laura Manfrey founded Sophia Sees Hope, a group named for her 14-year-old daughter, Sophia Prevey, who has LCA but not the gene Luxturna targets. The Connecticut woman will represent families at the FDA hearing. Sophia said she longs for a therapy that would let her drive a car, walk into a room, and be able to identify my friends, to be able to do my own makeup, and to read a book in the print and see the night sky. Paul?
Well, let's hope that it works out. This article out of New York, the last Leonardo da Vinci painting in private hands is going to auction in New York next month with a pre-sale estimate of around $100 million. The Christie announced Tuesday that the depiction of Jesus, titled Salvator Mundi, will be offered November 15th. The Salvator Mundi is the holy grail of Old Master paintings, declared Christie's specialist Alan Wintermuth. It seems just a tantalizingly unobtainable dream until now. To see a fully finished late masterpiece by Leonardo, made at the peak of his genius, appear for sale in 2017 is as close as I've come to an art world miracle. The work, dating from around 1500, is one of the fewer than 20 known paintings by Leonardo. It was first recorded in the royal collection of King Charles I in the early 1600s, then changed hands, dropped out of sight, and was later acquired as a work by Leonardo's follower. Christie's said, Christ's face and hair were overpainted. It was sold for 45 British pounds in 1958, Christie said. It disappeared again for nearly half a century. It was believed that the work had been destroyed until it was rediscovered in 2005. It took 6 years to authenticate it. Christie's said it decided to highlight the Leonardo at a sale of post-war and contemporary art because this work and artists transcend all collecting categories. The seller is identified only as a private European collection. Andy Warhol, 1986 painting 60 Last Suppers, based on Leonardo's Renaissance Last Supper masterpiece, also will be featured. Its estimate is around $50 million. Warhol's monumental canvas poignantly illustrates the themes of religion and loss that were so instrumental in his work, the auction house said. The work was executed a year before the artist's death. Rick?
White supremacist use of Pepe fought by its creator. The creator of Pepe the Frog is getting more aggressive in his legal campaign against websites, books, and phone apps that he says use the fun-loving cartoon figure to espouse hate. Lawyers for artist Matt Fury are demanding that websites, including one created by white supremacist Richard Spencer, stop using images or selling products featuring the cartoon frog. Last month, they succeeded in getting a book with racist images, and Pepe pulled off the market. Nobody should be using Pepe in a kind of hateful speech, said Fury's lawyer, Lewis Tompros of Wilmer Hale in Boston. Fury's cartoon started more than a decade ago as a college slacker character, one of 4 roommates in a comic called Boys Club. The image in Pepe's catchphrase, "Feels good, man," became an internet meme. In the past 2 years, though, the character has been co-opted by the alt-right, which is an offshoot of conservatism mixing racism, white nationalism, and anti-Semitism and populism. Pepe is sometimes pictured in a Nazi uniform or wearing a pointy white Ku Klux Klan hood. He thought after the election it would go away and it would wash over, Tompros said. The lawyer said he sent letters last week to prominent social media personality Mike Cernovich, Spencer's alt-right.com website, and an activist known on Twitter as Baked Alaska, asking them to stop unauthorized uses of Pepe's image. Reddit has been asked to stop the use of Pepe as a pop-up on a forum supportive of President Donald Trump. Cernovich said one image that Fury complained about was on an article where he explained why he wasn't part of the alt-right. He said he has hired his own lawyers to address the defamation. Their lawsuit threat is frivolous, he said in a message sent through the Twitter. I have disavowed the alt-right repeatedly, have no association with them, and it's false and defamatory for Fury and his lawyers to refer to me as alt-right. Spencer didn't immediately respond to queries seeking comment. The Baked Alaska creator couldn't be reached. After getting copyright notices from Fury, Amazon.com it stopped selling one Baked Alaska book and a T-shirt used by a man who pepper-sprayed activists at a Stand Against Hate rally in New Jersey. Alphabet Inc.'s Google Play has removed a Baked Alaska app called Build the Wall, the game, and more than 50 T-shirt designs have been pulled from various sites, Tompros said. It absolutely is like playing whack-a-mole, Tompros said. We've been trying to make the moles a little afraid of popping up. Fury's biggest efforts started with a self-published book called The Adventures of Pepe and Payday by a Texas school assistant principal who said he was just trying to impart his conservative views. After being threatened with a lawsuit, the author stopped selling the book and agreed to turn over any profits he made to the Council on American Islamic Relations, the nation's largest Muslim civil rights and advocacy organization. The idea to turn to lawyers came after less genteel ways didn't stop the spread. After the Anti-Defamation League labeled Pepe a hate symbol, Fury has worked with them to try to reclaim the image and began a Save Pepe campaign. He even did a cartoon killing the frog, though he hasn't ruled out a resurrection. The cartoonist isn't trying to stop the use of Pepe as it was originally intended. After all, Tompros said, Walt Disney Company doesn't go after every kid drawing a Mickey Mouse image. It's his copyright, and he can enforce it against anyone he wants to, Tompros said. We're making the statement that Pepe is not fair game. Paul?
Well, it's 10:21. We'll switch over to the local news. The city sold a house at 4405 South 84th Street for $43. That's not a lot of money, but it is still a good deal for the city. The buyer plans to move the white ranch-style home, making way for a new fire station at that location south of Pioneers Boulevard and saving the city thousands of dollars to demolish the house, said Pat Borer, an assistant fire chief. The house was sold through an online auction, and $43 was the highest of several bids, Borer said. The new owner will be moving the house to Schubert in southeast Nebraska, not too far from Indian Cave State Park, according to Tom Cassidy, public safety director. The city also tried to sell another house at 6601 Pine Lake Road, but no one bid on it. So fire and police have been using that house for training. Of it will be demolished this fall in anticipation of building a new fire and police station on the property. The city has also purchased property at 4421 North 24th Street and is looking for property near 84th and Holdry Street for a northeast fire station. All the stations are in growth areas at the edges of the city. The 4 stations, which are intended to last 50 to 75 years, are being funded by a voter-approved quarter-cent city sales tax that began about 2 years ago. A 5th fire station to replace one at the Lincoln's Airport is already under construction in the cornfield near the Northwest 48th and Adams Streets. Its funding is not through the sales tax. Rick?
Papillion unveils a plan for its transition to a big city. It would be less than a mile from Gretna if both cities' proposals are okayed. A week and a half after Gretna announced a sprawling annexation plan, Papillion has announced its own smaller annexation plan package. But the proposed plan is not a reaction to Gretna, as Papillion officials say. It's part of Papillion's continued move from a small town to a big city, said Papillion Mayor David Black. We've been doing things in anticipation of growth for the last 5 years, and we'll continue to do those things. The plan includes the Cottonwood neighborhood, as well as the Facebook data center, Omaha National Cemetery, and Travelers Data Center. It would bring about 750 people and 800 acres into city limits. The latest estimates put the city at 19,500 and 4,200 acres. If the package is approved, city limits would extend east to roughly 66th Street and Cornhusker Road at south and west to about Nebraska Highway 50 and Capehart Road. If Gretna's annexation also passes, the city limits of the two would be less than a mile apart in places. The package will go before the Planning Commission on October 25th and before the City Council on October 26th, 27th, and 28th. It will go into effect November 12th if it garners a stamp of approval. The data centers and other western industrial areas are key, Papillion spokesman Trenton Albers said, because the increased taxes from those areas will help offset the cost of annexing residential areas in the east. The projected effect of the overall annexation is slightly net positive in terms of revenue, he said, but finalized impact numbers won't be available until the city committee meeting on October 17th. The city's intent is to foster orderly growth, Black said. That means the city needs to grow at a pace it can keep up with, he said. This annexation package is part of that process. The city has been honing this annexation package for about 3 months, Black said, which is long before Gretna's September 29th announcement of its annexation plan. Gretna's annexation should be approved, would double the small city's land area and add at least 2,800 people to the town of 5,000. The package complied with a 2010 boundary agreement with the Papillion that extends along Interstate 80, but the plan also includes land south of I-80, just past 180th Street, which has the potential to one day be absorbed by Gretna, Papillion, or Springfield. On October 3rd, Papillion City Council met in closed session to discuss potential litigation if Gretna's council approves its plan. None of that has any bearing on the annexation, announced Wednesday, Black said. Both of the annexations could go through, and they don't touch each other, and ours stays within the boundaries of the 2010 agreement. So I think that demonstrates it's not reaction. However, Black questioned the legality of Gretna's planned annexation because of that city's plans to annex agricultural land that's rural in nature. Well,
this article out of Billings, Montana. Attorneys for the Trump administration said a federal judge has no authority to second-guess a presidential permit for Keystone XL oil pipeline as they seek to stop a lawsuit that would block the project. Justice Department attorneys are due in U.S. District Court in Montana on Wednesday, today, to defend the administration's March approval of the 1,179-mile pipeline, a lightning rod in the debate over what to do about climate change. The Trans-Canada proposal would transport Canadian oil through Montana and South Dakota to Nebraska, where it would connect with an existing system of lines to carry oil to the Gulf Coast refineries. The Obama administration rejected the project, but the proposal was revised in March by President Donald Trump, who said it would create jobs and lead to greater energy independence. Conservation groups and Native American organizations that sued over the project argue that an environmental review completed in 2014 was inadequate. They've asked U.S. District Judge Brian Morris to revoke its permit. Government attorneys said in their motion to throw out the case that Morris can't interfere because the Constitution gives Trump authority over matters of foreign affairs and national security. The remedy that plaintiffs seek, an injunction against the presidential permit, is not available because such an order would impermissibly infringe on the president's authority, Justice Department Attorney Bridget McNeil wrote. The project's economics have shifted considerably since the pipeline was proposed in 2008, with low oil prices and the high cost of extracting Canadian crude from Alberta's oil sands now casting doubt on whether it would be profitable. Opponents say those market changes undercut arguments from Keystone XL supporters that oil would get to the consumers by another means if the pipeline was not built. The opponents said the current market conditions should have been weighed by the State Department before it issued the permit. In a low oil market world, adding close to 1 million barrels a day of capacity out of the tar sands is a lifeline for that industry. You can't say it's going to find its way to market whether this pipeline is built, said attorney Doug Hayes with the Sierra Club, one of the plaintiffs in the lawsuits. A TransCanada executive in August raised doubts about Keystone's prospects and said the Calgary-based company would decide later this year about whether to start construction. Company spokesman Matthew Johns said Tuesday that the project was in the national interest of the U.S. and Canada. He declined to address the lawsuit or the pipeline's economic prospects. Keystone has faced heated opposition from landowners whose property would be crossed by the line. The Nebraska Public Service Commission must decide by November 23rd whether to give approval. South Dakota and Montana regulators have approved the project. Rick?
Targeting of Fisher has Nebraskans flummoxed. Steve Bannon says he will support challengers to almost every GOP senator running for re-election. Nebraska conservatives say they're puzzled by reports that former presidential advisor Stephen Bannon is targeting U.S. Senator Deb Fisher. Bannon has promised to back primary challengers to almost every Republican senator who is running for re-election next year, including Fisher. Even safe incumbents like Wyoming Senator John Barrasso and Deb Fisher. They have to understand something, Bannon said on the Fox News show Hannity. Just voting is not good enough. You have to have a sense of urgency. Nobody's safe. We're coming after all of them and we're going to win. Bannon is President Donald Trump's former chief strategist who has returned to the helm of the conservative Breitbart News. Bannon also has been controversial for his particular brand of populism and for his website providing a platform for white supremacists. Most recently, he supported Alabama Senate candidate Roy Moore over Luther Strange, who had support from Trump and members of the Republican establishment. Moore prevailed and is the Republican nominee to fill the seat left open by Jeff Sessions' appointment as U.S. Attorney General. Now Bannon said he's turning his attention to 2018, and Ted Cruz is the only senator whom he doesn't plan to target. But in Nebraska, hardline conservative Trump supporters say they're pleased with Fisher's performance. My gosh, I mean, she's a conservative, said Doug Kagan of the Nebraska Taxpayers for Freedom. So I don't understand why Bannon would want to run against anyone against her. Bannon will support only candidates who agree to two conditions, according to the report in Bloomberg News. They will vote against Senator Mitch McConnell of Kentucky as majority leader, and they will vote to end senators' ability to block legislation by filibustering. Fisher campaign manager Allison Bedell did not respond to questions about where Fisher stands on these two issues. But in a statement, Bedell said the senator continues to work hard every single day and remains focused on serving Nebraskans. She and her staff have an excellent working relationship with the White House and the administration. Recall, she has already hosted both the Secretary of Agriculture and the Secretary of Transportation in Nebraska at their request just this year. Well,
This